I think everyone's back. If you're not here, say hi. That's all right. Too late, can't hear you. Okay then. Hope it's a very quick coffee break, but hopefully it's a little bit of refreshers to keep us entertained. I reckon we will be able to keep to this schedule. I'm fairly confident for that. I'll try my best to see what we can do. I think it's perfect time to get on to our next speaker, who's come all the way over from Her Majesty's Queen Elizabeth's United Kingdom. He's come from the University of West London, I believe. Please apologise if I pronounce your name wrong, sir. It's done some, as I've been reading recently, and a lot of your work has been some fantastic research recently on human trafficking, and obviously some toolkits, I believe, on the management strategies. So, without further ado, please welcome to the stage Professor Alexandros Paraskevas.
Excellent.
Ευχαριστώ.
Thank you. That's the one. Okay, good. Hello, everybody. I'm going to talk to you about some realities. Although I am an academic and we are considered being away from the real world, I've done with several very good colleagues in the past 5 years quite in-depth research on human trafficking in the hotel sector. As you can see, researching human trafficking in the European hotel sector. And initially the project was not about human trafficking in the hotel sector, but in the hospitality sector. Today we're going to talk about hotels, but you need to remember that hospitality is much wider than hotels. One source which is very difficult to research, one area which is difficult to research, is the restaurant sector. And it was mentioned here before that, oh, we don't have people working in restaurants and slaves. Actually, we do, in ethnic restaurants. Mostly ethnic restaurants. And when I started preliminary research back in 2012, in this sector, I was approached while interviewing a victim in a Chinese restaurant by a gentleman who said, "Stop it, or we will stop you." So there is high criminal activity in this sector. There is a gang called the Snakeheads, and I'm sure that you will probably know it, which is trafficking people from mainland China in particular to European countries under bond, bond debting. And these people work in the hospitality sector, in the restaurant sector. So why did we start in human trafficking research in 2012? I am an academic who started his career in the hotel industry. I worked for about 15 years with Marriott and some other hotel chains before becoming an academic. So I worked, when I started my career, mainly at night shifts in the beginning. And in the night you see a lot. So it was alluded that people are not aware about what's happening. No, we are aware, but we were conditioned at that time to accept certain things. We were conditioned to accept prostitution because the role that we had as hotel workers, hotel employees, hotel managers was guest satisfaction. And we wouldn't care about what's happening behind closed doors. Things have changed, though. And what we were conditioned to be acceptable in the past is not acceptable now. Sexual harassment, for example, is not acceptable anymore. But this is part of our industry, I was told when I started 30 years ago. Bullying in the kitchens is not accepted anymore. And it's up to you, really, the young generation to change things in our industry. So, I was privileged to get funding in a consortium with Oxford Brookes University and the Finnish institution, Lapland University of Applied Science, and the Ratu Foundation in Romania to do this research in the hotel sector in the end, because hospitality was deemed broad and dangerous if we included the restaurants. And I found a lot of people, I met with a lot of people, and I'm going to share with you 4 stories today. But these stories do not start as normal with once upon a time. These are the stories of Justina, Osama, Louise, and Ben. What do they have in common? They are all real persons. We have talked with them, we have interviewed them. Of course, they are not the persons that you see in the photos here. These photos are from models, but they are real persons. And what happened is that all of them work in the hospitality industry, in the hotel industry. They work in the hotel next door. They can work in the hotel next door. And their lives have been affected by human trafficking. So maybe not all stories have once upon a time, but these stories have all these evil monsters. These people who are actually exploit vulnerable persons and they treat them as slaves. And these are real faces, actually. Before we start this storytelling, let me clarify something. When we talk about human trafficking, many of us think of something like this. This is not human trafficking. These images that we see on TV are not about human traffickers. The people who are transporting illegal immigrants to countries illegally, all right, these are human smugglers, not human traffickers. In human trafficking, there were a lot of definitions presented before, and I'm not going to dwell a lot on that. This is the definition from the Council of Europe. And remember that it has to be movement. There has to be movement, not necessarily across borders of nations. It could be movement within a nation. So we're not talking necessarily for the stereotype that we said before, Eastern European woman moved from one country to another. It could be, and we had cases of Danish women or men moved within Denmark. Dutch people moved within the Netherlands. There is an element of coercion, deception, or abuse. These people are manipulated, forced to do what they are doing. And there is control and exploitation. So they don't have their lives in their hands. Okay? They are depending on their traffickers. So it is a form of slavery, one form of modern slavery. So it could be any race, any age, any nationality held against their will. The officially reported figures that we had from the Institute of Migration, or ILO, are just the tip of the iceberg. And why we have this? Because the reporting standards in different countries are variable. There is not a common reporting standard. What is considered human trafficking in one country is not considered human trafficking in another country. So, Netherlands is probably the #1 country in the world in human trafficking. You know why? Because they have the best reporting system. All right? Let me reiterate. We are talking about 45.8 million global victims. And this is the number from the Walk Free Foundation in 2017. Today, we have 46 million slaves around the world. It's a growing criminal business because it has low risk and high returns. It has low conviction rates, unfortunately, because not many victims actually turn up in court cases. And we are talking about $150 billion of profits generated every year from this business. Now, our research in the European Union showed that if we started with a number of 1.14 million trafficked reported in 2013, in the hospitality sector, in the hospitality industry, we have every year 115,000 people being trafficked. And you see the spread. Sexual exploitation in hotels, about 94,000 people. Victims of labor exploitation in restaurants and bars, about 15,000 people. And labor exploitation in hotels, 7,000 people. Typically, apart from child sexual exploitation, which was illustrated before by the speaker before us, we have forced prostitution, forced criminality, domestic servitude, forced and bonded labor, and forced and bonded labor in supply chains and construction. So let's talk about Justina first. As you can see, Justina is serving meals in the staff cafeteria in a hotel. We said before, no, we cannot have people working in our hotels being slaves. Well, Justina was working as a dinner lady in a staff cafeteria, and then at a certain point, a position opened in the hotel in accounts receivable, in the accounting. Justina says, I have qualifications. I have graduated from Gdansk University and I have a degree in accounting, and I would like to apply for this position. Fair enough. Company likes internal promotions, okay, celebrates internal promotions. Let's give her a chance. However, someone who was a bit suspicious in the hotel said, let's check her background again. Eventually, it was found that Justina was not who she claimed she was. They found out that her account, her bank account where her salary was paid, was not corresponding to the address that she had reported when she applied. And this triggered some investigations. Eventually, what happened? Justina was in Poland, and she had her son very sick. So an uncle suggested, why don't you go to UK to work? I have some connections, and you will work as an accountant in a firm. You will get very well paid, and I will take care of your son. So Justina took the advice. She went to UK only to find herself entrapped in a human trafficking gang. They took her passport, they took her mobile phone, they threatened her that if she doesn't comply, she will be killed, or her son will be killed first, right? And one of the threats was, we will sell you for organs, all right? Unless you do what we tell you to do. So Justina got into this trip, let's say. Why was she placed there in a 5-star hotel? Because they were waiting for such an opening to happen, either in front office or in accounting. Accounts payable, receivable is the best place. Why? Because that's where you have access to all the customers' accounts, credit cards, CVVs, consumption, an ideal post to leak information to the gang for identity theft and possibly blackmailing, because in this big hotel, many personalities would go, frequent this hotel, stay in this hotel with their spouses or without their spouses, and there was evidence for all their consumption within this hotel. It could be leaked. Second opportunity would be to get a job, a post in front office. The criminal gang had a travel agent set up. Every person who would come in the hotel without reservation could be, every walk-in other words, could be registered as coming from this travel agent, and the travel agent getting a commission for as long as they could hold this position without being discovered. So Justina was one of the victims in human trafficking, working in a hotel legally, but waiting to commit crimes on behalf of the gang. Osama was a Somali worker who actually was promised a very lucrative job in the hotel sector as a maintenance person. So he paid about 4,000 pounds to the recruiter and left from Somalia and was trafficked through the Arabic Peninsula, Turkey, and the way from Turkey to Greece, my home country, and UK eventually, but ended up working for a Russian constructor, being paid only £4 per day, living in a room together with 15 more constructors. And he worked in total in 10 hotels, 10 luxury hotels in London as maintenance worker. Nobody traced him. Nobody was interested at his background. Why? Because all that matters is we outsource our business to a contractor. We don't care what happens to their employees. Right? Same thing happens in housekeeping. Okay? When we have agency staff, all that matters is that these people come in, clean certain rooms, go out, they're paid, the company is paid by room cleaned. And we don't really pay any attention as human resource managers in how these people are compensated, how are they treated, are they legally here or not? So these are the stories of those two persons. Remember, when we are talking about trafficking, criminals always look for the path of least resistance. And unfortunately, our industry offers many of those paths. Now let's talk about Louise. Louise is a chief security officer. One night, while she was on shift, a bellboy brings a letter to Louise saying, "This is addressed to the owner of the hotel." Who gave it to you? Someone not looking very honest, someone dodgy. So she opened the letter and read that we know that you like to throw parties and that you like to have young girls in these parties. we are ready to supply to you any type of girl you would like, from 9 years old to 18 years old. We can guarantee the virginity, and you can do whatever you like with them. Just let us know that you would like, and we will make all the arrangements. So Louise, being chief security officer, reports this, of course, to the general manager, but at the same time reports that to the police. So what they do is they set up a whole investigation. They look at cameras and they see who was the person who delivered the note, and they trace the note, the person outside the hotel through CCTV, entering a car. They looked at the registration plate, and they identified who these people were. And what they did is they set up a sting operation, a bait operation, saying, we want to have a party, please supply X amount of girls of this age. And of course, policemen pretended that they were the customers, the girls went there, they were delivered, people were arrested, everybody went to prison, girls were rehabilitated. The whole thing went to the press, of course. And what happened to Louise, you think? No, she was threatened to be killed by the remaining gang. Was she rewarded by the hotel? She was fired because she brought the hotel to disrepute. Right. Apart from being threatened for her life, she was fired. She had to change her where she was living. She had to go to other hotels to find a job. Finally, Ben. Ben is a general manager in a very successful hotel, 5-star hotel. You can see him, right? Very promising. You know, he's waiting for a transfer to a Paris hotel, you know, far more deluxe than the one that he's working in. And what is his success is that he has very big revenues. One of his major success is a prince who brings with him his whole family and escorts in general, and he blocks the 2 floors in his hotel, spending about £500,000 per week. Fantastic. He is delighted. The prince comes for the 5th time in his hotel, and now he's waiting, Ben is waiting for his promotion. What goes wrong? 2 Filipino ladies, part of the group of the prince, appear to the housekeeping manager and say, we are treated like slaves, literally. We are not allowed to talk to our families. We are beaten and physical signs on their body. The younger one raped whenever the people of the prince and the prince himself likes. Please help us. Please save us. Housekeeper goes to Ben, says, we have to do something. And Ben comes to a dilemma. Promotion or 2 Filipino ladies, 2 Filipino maids. He made the wrong decision, which was promotion. He did not disclose to the police the case, and hoping that this will go under the carpet, and that's what happened. But the housekeeper had stronger conscience, and she reported the whole incident, and when it was discovered that Ben actually concealed the whole case, he was fired and lost his job in the hotel industry forever. Nobody would hire him again. So we have these stories, we said not all stories start with once upon a time, but can there be a happily ever after? Yes, there can be. What we can do is look simply the journeys of traffic victims in the hotel. This is front of the house, back of the house. There are nodes in these journeys, from reservations to arrival to occupancy to departure. Same thing when we're talking about agency staff or staff in general. For every node, we have oh, sorry. Oh. Did you record that? Please delete it. That's my... So for every node, there is a guardian somewhere. There is someone who actually checks this node and have critical intervention points. So in the reception, check-in, registration, we've seen these things before. In hiring people at the back of the house, we have to do some vetting. Vetting of the agencies that we are working with, vetting of the employees that we receive from these agencies. There are a lot of things that we can do. And if we do some of them, then we disrupt this journey. We make the lives of the traffickers much more difficult. And in this way, we can stop this crime from happening. And also, we need to partner with experts. And there are quite a few initiatives. This is Marilyn Carlson Nelson. She used to be the CEO of Carlson Hotels, now Radisson Hotel Group. She is the first person in the industry who really started doing something about child sexual exploitation. Together with ECPAT, which was mentioned before, they created the code of conduct for the travel industry, where companies are signing up and they agree that they will maintain certain standards in order to protect children from being sexually exploited in their businesses. Then there are other initiatives such as the International Tourism Partnership, private initiatives as the Shiva Foundation that we will hear after my talk, Hotel Watch. These are all industry initiatives. There is also a fantastic new network which is called Stop the Slavery Hotel Industry Network, and I'm sure that Sean will talk about it. So if we partner with the experts, the people that actually work with the traffic victims, our industry can actually not only prevent human trafficking from happening, but also give opportunities to the survivors of human trafficking to reintegrate to the society and get control of their lives, work in our industry, and thrive so that they will not need to go back to where they were. So, Combat Toolkit was the result of this 2 years research that we had. 3 reference guides about human trafficking in the hotel sector, addressing corporate issues for big companies, managerial issues, and operational issues for individual hotels and units. There are quite a few case studies that will be very interesting for people who are interested in looking at human trafficking to read. 30-minute training sessions for each of the case study, 10-minute training sessions for briefings in the beginning of shifts, train the trainer manual, an aid memoir, and awareness posters. If you're interested, you can download for free this toolkit at the Eurocree site or at the Stop the Slavery Hotel Industry Network. And on that note, I thank you for listening to me.